It's a great day, sports world. What's up to all the sports lovers, haters, addicts, and fanatics out there? This is Larry Patterson coming to you for GT365. That's Game Time 365 Sports Live here on the GTSN. That's the Game Time Sports Network. And today, we're watching 32 teams in 32 days, the Cincinnati Bengals edition. That's right, we're starting with the AFC North. And we're going to kick it off with the worst team in the AFC North that was sitting at 4-11-1. Boys started out 2-5-1. Starting the Joe Burrow era, selected him number 1 overall. Joe Burrow had an injury going into week 11. I actually watched that game. It was against Washington. And I think that was the play that he was going into the end zone. I think the Chase Young play, it might have been that. If not, correct me. But yeah, that cut his season short. I believe it was a torn ACL and some other things that went on, and they were kind of nervous that he wouldn't be able to be ready for this year. But nevertheless, he is ready to roll. He's at training camp. They say he's looking good. We'll see how it goes. Joe Burrow, his numbers from last year. He completed 65% of his passes, 264 for 404, 2,668 yards, 13 touchdowns. He had 5 interceptions. His line was not spotless, but in a week 11 injury, you can tell this guy was headed for big numbers. You can tell that the way that offense is going to look, that it's going to require a lot of scoring. It's going to require a lot of scoring in that offense, especially with the weapons that they got. We'll get to that in a second. Joe Mixon had a second straight year with an injury. Had his year cut short. I believe the first 2 seasons or the first 3 seasons, out of those 3 seasons, Joe Mixon had 2 1,100-yard seasons. And you don't get a better running back than that. He can also provide some catching abilities also. So it will work wonders to get him back for this season for a long time, not just 6 games like it was last year. That offense in the past was ranked 27. Even though they were on their way to new heights, there were a lot of things that were going on with that offense that were just not right. The line, for one, Jonah Williams, probably the best offensive lineman on that line. I don't even think he played a whole season, and since he came in the league, he's been kind of an injury bug. On the pass, like I said, 27th. On the run, they were 24th. So that tells you right there that that offense has to do a lot better. I'm blanking on the head coach name. I think it's Zach Taylor, who came over from the Rams. He's got to do a better job of how this offense is going to orchestrate this year. On third downs, this offense was ranked 30th. On fourth downs, they were ranked 4th, but not a lot of opportunities. And in the red zone, they were ranked 29th. So let's say dead last in every statistical category. Not every statistical category, but damn near. Moving on to the key departures for this team. Now, there's a lot of players on this team that was with this organization for a long time. Guys like AJ Green, 9 years. Guys like Giovanni Bernard, 8 years. Alex Erickson, 5 years. John Ross had 4 years here. Carl Lawson had 4 years here. Carlos King Dunlap had 11 years with that organization. And even Randy Bullock had some years, and Randy Bullock had some years in this organization. Randy Bullock, I kind of missed you on my kickers of the one of my kickers of the weeks last week, and you got to go back on that now that you're in Detroit. Kind of had some letdowns last year with all the missed opportunities that you had. So hopefully you can go on the kickers of the week sometime this year. Um, but Josh Bynes, you also lost to Carolina. He came over for 1 year. He was like third on the team in tackles. William Jackson, a lot of there was a lot of speculation that Washington overpaid for William Jackson, uh, and it could be true. But if you look at his numbers from the time that he came in the league, I think it's like 3 or 4 years. Like his coverage grades have been like in the 50s and early 60s, and that's pretty decent. That's pretty good. So that remains to be seen whether he was overpaid or not. Carl Lawson, he went to the Jets. Um, Carlos Dunlap, he was traded mid-season last year to the Seahawks, and he's still remaining there right now. Mackenzie Alexander came over from 1 year from Minnesota. He's back in Minnesota now. Xavier Williams, the defensive tackle, Alex Redmond, the guard, Marcus Hunt, the defensive end, LaShawn Sims, who's a cornerback, Christian Covington, who's on the D line, BJ Finney, Geno Atkins, and that's about it for as far as key departures. Key additions, this team got Trey Hendrickson from over in New Orleans, 13 and a half sacks last year. I think he had 4 the year before, but New Orleans didn't want to sign him back. So Cincinnati was one of the worst teams as far as pass rushing, as far as pressuring and getting to the quarterback, one of the worst. So why not get a guy who's had 13 and a half sacks? Yeah, you might overpay him, but the man had 13 and a half sacks in that defense, and maybe he can come over here and help them out. Larry Ogunjobi on the defensive line, coming over from Cleveland. You've also bought Chidobe Awuzie. I deal with a Cowboy fan on a daily basis, and he had some not so good things to say about Chidobe. He also had good things to say about Chidobe. But I went back and I look. I'm a stats guy. I also watch, but I'm a stats guy, and I see that Chidobe, his coverage grades were in the range of good, whether they were like early 60s. I think they was like late 50s, late 50s. I want to say maybe last year or year before. But that's the kind of things that you need. That's what basically landed him that contract that he got. I think it was like a 3-year deal. Mike Hilton coming over from Pittsburgh. Eli Apple, who's been bounced around the league, he has to find some kind of stable home. Ricardo Allen coming over from Atlanta, and Riley Reef, which I think is a diamond in the rough pick right here, because that's one of the spots that they desperately need to be really good at, is that offensive line. Yeah, you can go quick ball because your offensive line is so bad, but eventually over time you got to change some shit up. And I think Riley Reef might be. I'm not saying he's the best. He was one of the best tackles in the game, but maybe he can come in and provide some strength up front, so Joe Burrow can have more time to make better decisions. So let's go over the re-signed players. Kevin Huber was a punter. He was re-signed. Quentin Spain, he was re-signed. Jordan Evans, linebacker. Mike Daniels, who was a defensive tackle. Amani Bledsoe, a defensive end. And Tony Brown, who's been doing some good things for them also. Going into this offense, I'm going to go into this offense. Quarterbacks. Brandon Allen going into his 5th year, who is a serviceable quarterback. Joe Burrow going into his 2nd year. Eric Dungy and Kyle Shermer. Of course, Joe Burrow is the guy for the job, and hopefully he can do a lot of big things this year. I'm hoping so. At the running back position, you got Joe Mixon, who's back, and hopefully he's well. You got Jacquees Patrick from Florida State. Samaje Perine, who re-signed back. Travion Williams from Texas A&M. hopefully he can be used in that system a little bit, maybe on a third down or whatever. Chris Evans, who's also Chris Evans is a rookie who's been impressive in camp. And as far as catching the ball, they're saying he reminds them of a young Giovanni Bernard, and that is something to say right there, considering the fact that I just mentioned Giovanni Bernard last night as a great pass catcher and a connoisseur at the game of that he's in, and that pass catching ability. So that is your running back room, your wide receiver room, who I think is very underrated. And if they don't get things pumping this year, I think that at least they can have the experience this year to go into next year and do really, really amazing things. Starting with this wide receiver group, you got Tyler Boyd, who's going into his 6th year. Jamar Chase, who's a rookie, came over from LSU. He was drafted, I want to believe, 5th overall. Joe Burrow's very familiar with him, and maybe that offense can reach new heights with this new receiver in. T. Higgins, who had 908 yards last year. Very impressive. Shocked the hell out of me. I wasn't expecting those kind of numbers, especially with A.J. Brown in that offense. A.J. Brown only had 500 yards. Didn't really contribute much, considering that Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins was getting over 100 targets. A.J. Brown got over 100 targets too, but it was a low point of 100 targets. So that really told you right there that they were looking at Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins a lot more. So when you bring in Jamar Chase and his high-flying offense, all three of them could potentially have over 100 targets. Trenton Irwin, who's a first-year player. Stanley Morgan going into his 3rd year. Auden Tate, another serviceable backup, maybe for special teams or something like that. Trent Taylor coming over from San Francisco. The other Mike Thomas, not the Michael Thomas from from New Orleans, but the 6-year vet that's been in Cincinnati. Scotty Washington also going to his 1st year. And the tight end position, Mitchell Wilcox playing in his 1st year. He's got 1 year under his belt. CJ Ozuma going into his 7th year. Mason Schreck going into his 4th. Drew Sample, Cheyenne O'Grady, who's a rookie, and Thaddeus Moss, who is Randy Moss's son. And he's kind of he was on the Redskins, Washington football team's practice squad, and I think he kind of bounced off of that. And I believe he is on the Bengals squad. He is on the Bengals squad, but hopefully he can make that active roster and do some big things like his father did at a different position. But on the offensive line, Trey Hill, who's a rookie. Trey Hopkins going to his 6th year, and Billy Price going into his 4th year. Hakeem Adeniji going to his 2nd year. Michael Jordan going to his 3rd year. Quentin Spain going to his 7th year. Xavier Suafilo going to his 8th year. Keaton Sutherland, and then Lamont Galliard. On the offensive tackles, Jackson Carman, who's a rookie. Fred probably won't get a lot of playing time, but Fred Jackson, Isaiah Prince, Riley Reif going to his 10th year. He's probably got one of those spots wrapped up. Deontay Smith, who's been up and down in camp, he's a rookie. Jonah Williams, hopefully he can stay healthier than ever, so he can actually display that ability that he has, and he showed flashes of it last year. And then Gunnar Vogel, who is a serviceable role player at that position. On the defense, on the defensive line, Amani Bledsoe going into his 2nd year. Trey Hendrickson, as I said, came over from New Orleans, 13.5 sacks. You don't get no better than that. My man also had 33 pressures. I don't know if that led the team or if that was 2nd on the team, and then he also had 25 quarterback hits. So all career highs for him. at that stage. Maybe he can make it a lot better this year. Give that Bengals team that pass rush that they need, that they've been missing. Another guy that got a contract extension was Sam Hubbard. His numbers they weren't eye popping, but they were enough for him to get some kind of deal, and that's what they did. Congratulations to Sam. Wyatt Hubert, Khalid Kareem, Joseph Osai, who was very impressive, who was impressive in camp, and also had a great preseason, first half of the preseason up until like the third quarter or something like that. But he got a little wrist injury. He might be out for the rest of the preseason. Who knows? Hopefully not, because I definitely like some Joseph Osai and his pass rushing ability, and hoping that this Bengals team, with a lot of potential, hopefully he can come back and do some great service for them. Cam Sample, who's also a rookie, and I don't want to blank on my man name or mess his name up, but at the defensive tackle position, Freedom Akin Moladun. If I got that wrong, please let me know. But then you got Mike Daniels, who's a 10-year vet, Khalil McKenzie, Larry Ogunjobi, who coming over from Cleveland, DJ Reader, who's going to his second year with the Cincinnati Bengals after coming from Houston, Tyler Shelvin, Josh Tapui, and Renell Wynn going into his third year at the linebacker position, which they are kind of thin there, but Joe Bacci, who's going into his second year, Marcus Bailey, Akeem Davis Gaithers, who could improve, and he will improve going into his second year. Jordan Evans, Darius Hodge, who's a rookie, Keandre Jones, Jermaine Pratt, and Logan Wilson, who flashed as a rookie last year out of Wyoming. At the cornerback spot, Darius Phillips. A lot of people don't know about Darius Phillips. In 2018, he was a rookie. He had a 69% on a completion percentage. In 2019, he stepped it up. Now, granted, the fact has been a little bit of a sample size because he's had a history of some injuries. In 2019, he had 7 pass deflects, and he had 4 interceptions, and he had a 37 completion percentage. Now, granted, the fact, like I said, it was a sample size because he missed some games, and I think he missed some games in 2020, but he had an interception. He had 12 pass deflects, and he had a 51 completion percentage, and it was 31 completions out of 60 attempts. Now, that's pretty good. That's damn good. An impressive 90.7 PFF grade in week 16. So he had an outstanding game. Didn't get a chance to see the stats, but in last year, the whole year overall, he had a 72.1 PFF grade. So if he can at least continue to be healthy, maybe you got something. You got Eli Apple, who's been bounced around the league. Hopefully he can find him a good home here, or at least play well to find him a home somewhere else in the future. Chidobe Awuzie got the big contract. He got it for a reason. Now, hopefully it can work out. Tony Brown returning, Jalen Davis, who's a second-year player, Mike Hilton coming over from Pittsburgh, Donnie Lewis, Antonio Phillips, Winston Rose, and Trey Waynes, who basically missed all of last year due to a pectoral injury. At the safety position, Ricardo Allen coming over from Atlanta. Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates is very unknown also. Some people know him, some people don't. But when you're talking about top 10, top 5 safeties in the league, he definitely goes on that. And if you ask somebody who's the top 5 safety in the league, and you say, well, Jesse Bates is one of them. Like, who is Jesse Bates? I know who Jesse Bates is. My man has 63 completion percentage against 62 and a 54 respectively in his 3 years. 9 interceptions in his 3-year career, 3 each year. 2018, 2019, and 2020, he's had 3 interceptions per year. 15 pass deflects and over 100 tackles in the first 3 years. That is balling. And he is definitely primed for a big payday. Probably be one of the highest paid safeties come next year or year after next. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Von Bell going to his second year with Cincinnati after being in New Orleans for a number of years. Kayvon Frazier going to his 6th year. Trayvon Henderson going to his 2nd year. And Brandon Wilson going to his 5th year with the Bengals. Got a new kicker on the squad. Evan McPherson, who's a rookie. Austin Siebert, who's a 3rd-year player. So Randy Bullock is out. Damn, Randy. And at the punter position, you got a rookie in Drew Chrisman. And then you got Kevin Huber, who's been in the league 13 years. And that's your roster, man. The first 5 games for the Cincinnati Bengals ball club, they're at home against the Vikings, and I like that matchup because, I mean, granted the fact that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase aren't playing against each other, but it's the fact that Justin Jefferson's team and Jamar Chase's team is playing against each other, and it's a pretty good chance that we could see both of these dynamic players just do amazing things in their respective offenses this year. And what better way? We don't have to wait to see both of them go at it in week 1. And then week 2, they're at the Bears. In week 3, they're at Pittsburgh. At week 4, at the Jaguars. And then, no, they're not at the Jaguars. They're at home against the Jaguars and then at home against Green Bay. So at home against Vikings, at the Bears, at the Steelers, back at home against the Jags and the Packers. That's pretty tough. I can see them starting out possibly maybe 1-4, maybe 1-4, maybe 2-3. You never know. Going over their rookies, Jamar Chase, the wide receiver out of LSU. I thought they might have went Penei Sewell to help protect, but they didn't. And we'll get to Penei Sewell when we get to 32 teams in 32 days. Detroit, but he definitely had mixed reviews from me in his first preseason game. Jackson Carman, the offensive tackle out of Clemson. Joseph Osai, who I think is a very, very underrated pick. He went in the 3rd round, and like I said, he was tearing stuff up in that preseason game, getting after Kyle Trask. Cameron Sample, defensive end out of Tulane. Tyler Shelvin, defensive tackle out of LSU. Deontay Smith, offensive tackle out of East Carolina. Evan McPherson, a kicker out of Florida. Trey Hill, a center out of Georgia. Chris Evans, another underrated pick, and hopefully he can get some snaps, but it's kind of hard to get snaps behind a Joe Mixon, but he's still battling for that 2nd spot, so maybe he can beat out Samaje Perine or Trayvon Henderson. And then Everett Hubert at the defensive end spot, he's a defensive end out of Kansas State, adding to that depth room right there. I think this ball club has some promise. If as long as they protect Joe Burrow, and with a defense that I'm not going to say they're going to be a shutdown defense, of course not, but they can give you in a sense of a good turnover defense. Now, you might get a lot of yards on them, but they're going to get their turnovers. They're going to get you off the field at the right time. I could see this team going, not say playoffs, but maybe the race to the wild card. And hopefully my prediction is right. But I do see some good things out of this ball club, especially for the future. For GameTime 365 Sports, this is Larry Patterson, GT365. It's GameTime 365 Sports live here on the GTSN. That's the GameTime Sports Network. And until then,